You are listening to our new segment podcast called as FV Safe Space with me, Nurul Afika, where every week we will discuss on topics that are seen as sensitive in the people's eyes. And today we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is disabled is not a label. Many of us have heard this term disability, but do we actually know what it means? What are the misunderstandings faced by these people? Are there any ways to help them and ease their burden? Joining us today is a very special guest, Hanis Shafika, who is a dearest friend of mine and also have a family member who is disabled, where we will talk more on it in the podcast. Hi Hanis, welcome to our safe space.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here with you, Nurul. It is such an honor.
So Hanis, let's start by discussing the term of disability. In my point of view, this phrase means the body or mind that makes it something more difficult for the person with the condition to do certain activities and interact with the world around them, which is participation and restrictions. It comes in various ways such as vision, movement, thinking, remembering, learning, communicating, hearing, mental health, and also social relationship. Now, Hanis, what does that word exactly mean to you from your point of view?
Okay, for me, disability is a term used to describe a physical or mental impairment that affects a person's ability to perform daily activities. It's important to note that disability is not just a medical condition, it is a social construct.
Oh, okay, that's a new phrase for me. Do you mind to explain more on what the social construct means?
Sure, Nurul. Disability is more than simply a person's physical condition. It also refers to how society perceives and treats disabled person. Physical, communication, and attitude barriers have all been put in place by society to discriminate against people with disabilities. It may be challenging for individuals with disabilities to fully engage in society due to these obstacles.
That's a very important point. So, how do disabled people view themselves? Do they see themselves as disabled? Because most of the time we will see them having more low self-esteem because of that disabled word have always been haunting them in their life. Am I right, Hanis?
It depends on the individual. Some persons with disabilities accept the label disabled and regard it as a sense of self-worth. They are proud of their impairment and see it as just a natural part of the individuals they are. Some people may be opposed to the word and favor using terminology like differently able or people with disability. It's crucial to acknowledge how each person prefers to be addressed.
That's a good explanation for everyone to hear. Moving to another question, have you ever encountered people with disability in your life, or is there anyone you know who are dealing with this kind of situation?
Oh yes, Nurul. I have someone who I love the most is holding an OKU card. It is my own brother.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but do you mind telling us more about which category he is in and how he was diagnosed, or maybe is there any characteristic that shows him at it?
Alright, it's my pleasure to tell more about it so people can know more and be more aware of it. He was diagnosed with mild autism when he was at the age of 21. No one could identify him as an autist because he had never shown any signs of it because he managed to finish his studies until Form 6 and no teacher have called my mom to talk about anything regard of his behavior or attitudes.
Oh wow, that's very interesting because no one have seen that sign that he is actually an autistic.
Exactly. But we won't deny he is a bit slow in getting things that was taught, especially in numbers, and his social skills was a bit lack. He doesn't often talk to people whenever he is in a new place or in a big circle. He will only talk with people who he feels comfortable with. Besides, he also shows a sign that he is only interested in one thing, which is history. As when he was clinically diagnosed after almost a year of going for checkup and a few tests, the doctor officially diagnosed him with mild autism, which also makes sense because the doctor said that it is one of the characteristics that autism people tend to have, which is loving to study on any subject that he is only interested, where they will make sure they know everything about it.
Oh, wow. That's quite an input and interesting thing to digest. I also have interviewed a doctor before where he said that people can still be diagnosed with this disabled until the maximum age of 25 for autism specifically. But what's important is for people to go to hospital as soon as possible so they can diagnose in the early years if they really have, and make sure you do not self-diagnose yourself. It is always important to seek help from the certified doctors.
Indeed, that is true, Nurul.
I often see people looking down towards the disabled people, which always get me kind of furious. They do not ask to be born that way, and the least that we can do is to respect them and treat them equally. What is your opinion on that topic, Hanis?
Yes, Nurul. Due to an absence of awareness or unfavorable assumptions about disability, people may belittle those who are disabled. Disability has long been stigmatized and perceived as a tragedy or a cause of shame on an individual level. This unfavorable perception might cause people to believe that disabled persons are less capable, competent, or valuable than non-disabled people. I mean, not everyone sees people with disabilities as equal members of community with the same chances and rights as everyone else, but rather as a burden on society or as objects of charity.
I can't deny because what you were saying was all pure facts, Hanis. It's critical to combat these unfavorable beliefs and advance a more tolerant and welcoming understanding of disability. Disability is a normal aspect of being human, and people with disabilities have particular viewpoints, talents, and contributions to offer this society. Moving on, can you please enlighten me and the audience what are the common misunderstandings do people have about the disabled community?
Alright, so there are several common misunderstandings that people have about disability, Nurul. So one of the biggest misconceptions is the belief that having disability is a personal tragedy or a cause for shame. This notion fosters unfavorable stereotypes and diminishes the dignity and worth of people with disabilities. Another widespread misunderstanding is that everyone with disabilities are identical and go through the same things. Disability is a complicated and varied phenomena that has a variety of effects on people according to the kind of disability, how severe it is, and the person's social and cultural background. Furthermore, some people they think that a handicap is only a medical problem that can be treated or cured. Disability, however, is a social construct that reflects how society perceives and treats disabled people as much as a medical illness.
I totally agree on all of the points given by Hanis, and I would like to add one more, which is I think it's a common fallacy that persons with disabilities required to be repaired or cured in order to contribute to society. This kind of misconception supports discrimination and exclusion by ignoring the numerous and significant contributions that people with disabilities make towards society. It's very critical to dispel this myth and advance a welcoming and accepting society for persons with disabilities. Hence why we need to improve on that so that disabled people won't feel left out, because in the end of the day, every human deserves to be treated equally. There's no such thing as bias. Am I right, Hanis?
You got me 100% on your side, Nurul. Truth to be told, we need to get rid of the looking down towards the disabled kind of mentality because it will never bring us anywhere.
Oh, I just love how discussion is getting more intense. So let's take a sip of water before we continue deeper into this topic, Hanis. That is so refreshing.
It is, and now I can't wait to go deeper into this. Let's do this.
Let's go. Now, as you all know, there must always be ways to help and ease these people's burden to fit into the society. And Hanis, as someone who is very near to the community, do you think there should be any ways, no matter what type of form, that could help or ease the burden of the disabled people? And why do you think they need this much to be helped?
Frankly speaking, it is a must to help the people who are disabled in any type of form. There are few ways to help them, and the first one will be providing accessible infrastructure for disabled individuals. It is essential to promote inclusion, independence, and equal chances is crucial. Physical elements including roads, public transportation, and buildings that are made to accommodate the needs of individuals who have disabilities are referred to as accessible infrastructure. Some of the ways that infrastructure can be made accessible for disabled individuals include assuring that people with mobility issues can enter buildings and public spaces by installing ramps, lifts, and accessible parking spaces.
I agree with Hanis, and I would like to add on, as I have read this before, where we also should put in hearing loops and other assistive listening equipment in public places like lecture halls and theaters to help those with hearing problems. Ensure that digital platforms like websites, apps for mobile devices, and other digital platforms are usable by people with impairments and include tools like keyboard navigation and screen readers, and also guarantee that people with communication impairments can take part completely in public events and activities. Accessible communication should be made available, such as captioning or sign language interpreters.
That is also true. Do you have any more ideas on how to help the disabled people, Nurul?
Oh yes, Hanis, I have been thinking about enforcing the anti-discrimination laws. One of it is to raise awareness. It's critical to spread awareness of the safeguards offered by the anti-discrimination laws, as well as the rights of people with disabilities. Campaigns for public education, community engagement activities, and media-related projects can accomplish this. Secondly is investigating complaints. Investigating accusation of handicap discrimination and enforcing anti-discrimination legislation are the responsibilities of government organizations like the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, and the Department of Justice, which is known as DOJ. Legal assistance, including representation in court, can be offered to disabled people who have faced prejudice by legal aid organizations and disability rights activists.
Oh, Nurul, you know much about that, and I would like to add on that anti-discrimination legislation must be upheld in order to safeguard disabled people's rights and advance equal opportunity. To guarantee that disabled people are not subjected to discrimination and are given the accommodation they need to fully engage in society, cooperation between government agencies, advocacy groups, as well as employers is necessary.
Now, the third way for us to help them is through education, which is by promoting inclusive education. And what do you think about this, Hanis?
I think promoting inclusive education is a great move to be done. The term inclusive education refers to a strategy that places an emphasis on including students with disabilities in regular classrooms and offers them the support and adjustments they need to fully engage in the educational process. Few ways that can be used in providing accessibility. Assistive technologies like screen readers, adaptive softwares, and hearing aids should be made available to guarantee that students with impairments are able to utilize course content. Next is adapting curriculum. Teacher ought to get training on how tailor lessons to fit various styles of learning or provide alternate formats like braille or audiobooks in order to better serve learners who are disabled.
I am with you on that, Hanis. To add on, my mom is also a teacher who have multiple students who are disabled, and there are also some of them who show tantrums, can even do something out of the box when they are very, very angry, and so on. Hence, why providing teacher training is very important too. Teachers should receive special kind of training on how to engage with kids who have impairments and should have access to tools like peer mentorship, coaching, and professional development opportunities. Besides, encouraging inclusive attitudes is important too because in order to be inclusive, education must embrace disability. Education about disability rights and inclusion, as well as encouragement to promote a good and tolerant attitude towards students with disabilities, should be provided to educators, students, and also parents, Hanis.
Indeed, it is true. Even though it is a crucial step towards building a society that is more inclusive and equal, it makes it possible for all students to engage completely in their education and realize their full academic potential despite their impairment.
Moving on to the fourth ways to help the disabled, what do you think? Why do you think we need to support employment opportunities?
Okay, there are many reasons why we need to do so, but one of them is to promote inclusion. The ability to work gives disabled people a way to contribute to their communities, engage fully in society as a whole, and find meaning in their lives. Besides, it is also to reduce poverty. Due to difficulties of employment, people with disabilities are more likely to live in poverty than people without disabilities. Encouraging work possibilities can aid in eradicating poverty and enhancing the financial well-being of those with disabilities and their loved ones.
That definitely makes sense, Hanis. As I was going through the internet just now, I have also found a great point to be added on ways to help the disabled, which is by providing healthcare and rehabilitation.
So, about that, can you please enlighten me on that, Nurul?
Yes, sure, Hanis. I am honored to do that. The first one is through accessibility. Facilities for healthcare and rehabilitation ought to be built and furnished to be handicap accessible. This covers both delivering accessible information and being able to use elements like ramps, lifts, and accessible restrooms. Secondly is through treatment and management of health conditions. Health issues, particularly chronic diseases and disabilities, ought to be treated and managed in full by medical professionals. Next, regular checkups, vaccinations, and health screenings are examples of preventive healthcare services that can aid in preventing or detecting health disorders early on, so they are more easily curable. Mental health services will be one of the ways to help them to get through it too. Counseling and therapy are two mental health interventions that can assist people with disabilities in coping with the emotional and psychological repercussions of their illness. That is all from me for this point.
Wow, Nurul, I have never thought about it, but once you talk about it, now it's making more sense. But I have one last point that is important.
Let's do it for one last time. And what is that about, Hanis?
It is the easiest one, but people always tend to not take it seriously, which is raising awareness. All those 5 points that we talked about just now was us trying to create awareness about the disabled people and justice for them to be treated equally. Awareness is what most of our people are lack of, and that is why we need to educate people from any aspect that we can.
I am 100% agree with you on that, Hanis. One last message that I have for the listeners. Disability is a normal aspect of human being. It's nothing to be humiliated of or kept quiet about. Individuals with disabilities are valuable assets to the community and deserve to be handled with respect and decency. Hanis, do you have any messages to our listener for the last time before we wrap up our episode for this week?
I have one which is short and simple. Disabled is not a label. Treat everyone equally. We are all human beings. That's all from me.
Indeed, it is short and simple but have thousands meaning behind it. Hanis, we are so grateful and glad that you shared your wisdom and experience with us. We enjoyed having you on our podcast.
I had so much fun too, and don't forget to invite me in the future. Looking forward to it.
Sure, I will, Hanis. Now, this is the end of our topic for this week. Don't forget to tune in with us next week with more interesting and snarky topic for us to discuss about. Till then, adios, my safe space listeners.